Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Industry Insiders. Today, I am joined by a Mr. David Sweeney. David has spent more than 25 years in the real estate industry and has built an impressive career spanning residential real estate, commercial real estate, foreclosure, disposition, brokerage operations, real estate education, and large-scale national platforms. He's licensed in multiple states and has been involved in helping build organizations that operate across all 50 states while managing thousands of transactions. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you here. You've been around the block, so there's bound to be some real nuggets of information in here for anybody that would watch this and may have an interest in or questioning whether they want to scale their operations. I
Hmm.
look forward to unpacking all this stuff with you. So, most people see the end result of a successful career, but they don't often hear how it started. So, give us the early version of David Sweeney, how he got into real estate, and what kept you in this industry for this period of time.
Well, I had started out my career in banking. I'd been working at Citibank, a lot of the large corporations, and I ended up as a vice president at Merrill Lynch Bank. And then we agreed to part company, and my wife and I started of all things a daycare center, which is funny. People go banking to daycare, and I said the mentality is fairly close to each other. Uh, but from there, and it was okay, but I went into real estate just to make a little extra cash on the side. And I found out very quickly I was making far more money doing this little thing on the side than I was with the daycare center. So we sold that and I started to go all in on real estate. I started off as an agent like you have to. And as soon as I had been around long enough to get my broker's license, I did. And I began doing things at that point because just being an agent wasn't going to be enough. And I think it all goes back to being in big business. I saw how things could be. And I think that that also brought the credibility to a lot of people that I knew what I was doing. Even right out of the gate, I got listings and sales from people who just believed that I could do it. And then from there, it moved to the point where we were doing well enough that it became the only thing we did. And then things went from there.
So, when you look back over your career, what were some of the pivotal moments that changed the direction of your business or your thinking?
I think pivotal times would be when I became a broker and decided to have my own shop. I wasn't overly happy with working for another company. I really believe strongly that this business is not about sales, but it's about people. And because of that, most of the big companies, it was all about the money. It was all about the sales. And it was hard to communicate. So I wanted to be able to communicate that fact. And that's where we are right now. I mean, I've gone through several things that we can talk about, but where I am right now is I have a very small boutique shop with just people that I like working with, that all of us care about people, and that's really what is the driving the thing that drives me in real estate.
So, did you have any early major success or even an early failure that has kind of shaped the path of your career here?
Yeah, I think failures push more towards change than success does. One of the things was when I had been working with a partner that I left and I went into my own in 2008, just before the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
came apart. And,
Mm-hmm.
no wonder that didn't really do very well just because I'm trying to be new when the entire market is collapsing. So what that brought me to was joining another large company, a foreclosure company, where I became a vice president there, and that's where I got my multiple licenses. So I got licensed in 13 states. There were about uh, 15 to 20 of us that covered the entire United States. for a large loan company that had spun off this company to take care of the foreclosures. And with New Jersey, we're always well behind because to get a foreclosure through the courts here in New Jersey takes much longer than any place else. So the tsunami of foreclosures was over when it hit New Jersey, because then everything that was in the pipeline came along. So that kept me going for a good 9 years doing those. And then once that started to cool off, that's when I went back out on my own.
So you worked through multiple market cycles. How has the business changed from when you first entered compared to today?
Well, when I first entered, it was back at the beginning of the beginning of the century. It's interesting to say that. And you could fall off out of your bed and sell a property. And that was back in what we call now the old days, where you had to sit in an office and do free secretarial for the brokerage, and people actually walked in off the street or called, and you could
Hmm.
take them out and show them a house, and they'd buy it. So that was easy, but it's rough because if you learn like that, you think that's the way real estate is, and it's not. So then when you go through the dips, that's when you're actually having to work.
Hmm.
So I'd already gotten the nuts and bolts on how to do transactions because I'd done so many of them there that at least I didn't have to concentrate on that. Then I can concentrate on trying to find business and trying to see how do you survive in this. Now, just a
Yeah.
little side issue is Jersey's a lot different than the rest of the country. When the country goes through a huge dip, Jersey just fades slightly. It's because we're the most populated state per square mile of any. We've got New York to the north and Philadelphia to the south, and almost every major pharmaceutical company has their headquarters here.
Mm.
So there's turnover all the time. So there's always, always demand. So we do go through the dip, but it doesn't crash as much as it does. So that helped me to be able to keep my equilibrium through all of that.
Yeah. Interesting. How that is much different than some other parts of the country that goes through some of the extremes
Mm.
and can make life a little more difficult for
Yep.
real estate brokerage. One thing that stood out to me was your involvement in building large-scale real estate operations. So many people understand real estate transactions, but far fewer understand what it takes to build systems that can operate nationally. What did you learn from those experiences?
Well, that was the one of the biggest projects I've ever had to do was to build a brokerage from zero to 50 states and to get that done within a 2 year period. And we were able to do it. But it's each individual broker going out and getting all those licenses, that by itself. 13 states. Imagine the CEs I have to do. I have 260 hours of CEs every 2 years. Building it was having, and in that case, it really was having the large organization behind us too,
Mm.
because that it took a fair amount of money for us to be able to put that together. And I always describe it as we were putting the wheels on the airplane as we were rolling down the tarmac. We were putting pieces on this thing before it was actually flying, and then it took off and flew. And we actually became one of the largest companies in the nation transaction wise, with no name. Nobody knew who we were. And I did over 10,000 transactions with that because of the systems, because the systems were set up, and we had an awful lot of support. For instance, all our MLS entry and things like that was done in India. So they would do all of that part of it. So I wouldn't have to actually type in the descriptions and things like that, which slows you down. So those things would then come through, and then I would just have to supervise and make sure that everything was being done the right way. But transactions just blew through. People used to call me that they thought I was a rock star because I was doing thousands of transactions a year. They give out the awards for production, and I was platinum every single year just because of blowing all these things through. But the system was the most important thing, and having all of this support so that I could drill down to doing just what I'm legally required to do, which is to supervise to make sure that it's being done right. So I would catch anything. So that if the people in India type things wrong, put things in, that's what I would pick up and fix.
So the most important part of that was the systems, if that's
Yes.
what I'm hearing you say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, how could a human handle 10,000 transactions?
Hmm.
If I had to go out and solicit business and do all of that, 10,000 transactions, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fact that we were getting the feed from that mortgage company, so we had all of the transactions, and then there are systems that they built to push them through.
Sure. What are the biggest mistakes you see companies make when they try to scale the size?
Well, the couple of things I've been part of that didn't work out was spending too much money up front. One guy who asked me to come and help him built this big elaborate office, this beautiful office that cost him, thousands and thousands of dollars before we had any transactions in the pipeline. So it didn't take too long until he ran out of money. And so undercapitalization, that's the killer of so many small businesses. So, bring it up slow. You can do what you want for how things look. Do that with your website. Do that in ways that people see it, but you don't have to spend millions of dollars getting your office together, especially not today. And that was part of his problem too, was not understanding real estate's moved out of the office and it's moved on to
Hmm.
the internet. And so he didn't quite pick it. If he had spent that much money on a website and on social media and all the other things, it would have made it. But he went with the physical. He had a bar in the office and all that kind of stuff,
Oh boy.
which was just silly, just silly. The business has to come first. You got to have the revenue. Even if you're hemorrhaging a little bit at the beginning, which you're going to, but
Hmm.
you got to have something, some source of that tells you you're going to have stuff going forward.
Filling the pipeline first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or at least establishing that there is a pipeline.
Yeah, well, there's that too. You could you could have the greatest concept in your own mind and get everything all set up, but if the market doesn't agree with you, it's not going to do you any good, is it?
Right, exactly. You got to test it first, make sure it's working.
Right. Let's see. When businesses start growing, what tends to break first?
Well, for the and again, it gets down to people. The foreclosure company I was with, they started to not sure the word I want to use here is to distrust or not see the value of the brokers. They didn't really. There was one group that had come in, and it happens often in companies. One group it comes in and is really good at building, and another group comes in that's supposed to be really good at operating. And what happened is across that line, communication as to what it was that we did and why we were valuable to it. So they did things like, start cutting our pay and questioning everything we're doing and all, rather than, hey, this is working, let these guys run. They're making us a ton of money, just get out of the way. It works well in brokerage firms. Brokerage firms don't touch the traders. They let the traders go because the traders are making them money. And that was basically what was going on there, but they didn't see it. They also made bad decisions. For instance, they had an opportunity to buy it was owners.com is what they bought, which was a very retail, or it was all houses. And they also got this thing called investability, which was all about building for investors. So putting offices around, and you could come in if you wanted to buy, if you wanted to sell, if you wanted to flip, if you wanted, because the company had all those pieces. including the property management. They had everything. That was perfect, but they didn't have enough money to do both. So they got rid of investability and kept owners, and went forward with that. Well, that was because if they had spoken to us as the brokers, all of us. I mean, I told the people that investability, give me an area, I'll go there, I'll take it because I could see what it was going to do, but they didn't. So that's what I think is not trusting that the people who are there and building it and who've been in the business know what they're doing. So value that.
Yeah, that's not uncommon uh, situation in a lot of other industries as well, right? Just not listening to the people who are the boots on the ground, the people that are in the trenches every
Right.
day, and getting their feedback on what direction or what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, I mean, college is great. People with their MBAs are great, but
Hmm. Hmm.
you need to mix that knowledge with an awful lot of the knowledge of the people who've got their fingers in the pie.
Yeah. So what's the difference between companies that successfully scale and companies that stay stuck?
I think it's probably mostly what I've seen is management is putting too much management in place.
Hmm.
uh, and too many layers, too many, once you start having to, real estate's way too quick. You can't sit there and say, I'll give you an answer in a week. The place is sold and moved on. Especially in the market we're in right now, where things are selling like crazy. At least in Jersey, they are. We're still having multiple offers and stuff like that going on. If you have a client who says, well, let me think about it for a few days, the property's gone. Well, the same thing as
Hmm.
in a big scale, when you've got so much management in place that you've got to go through levels of bureaucracy to get something done, it bogs it down, it doesn't make money, and then it becomes a downward cycle because now
Hmm.
we're not making enough, so we're going to have to cut someplace, or and it goes and it just continues that thing rather than taking off with that success and keep on growing that and get out of your own way. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So you were involved heavily during one of the most unusual periods in real estate history, those foreclosure years.
Mm.
So what lessons from that period are still relevant today?
Well, certainly how we got into it, with the subprime markets and all of
Mm.
that, and we're going back there. I've had mortgage guys tell me they have no doc loans, and they, no income verification, and you go, okay, here we go again. We're going back in, and nobody's getting in their way.
Yeah.
That's I'm not big on government intervention in business, but when it comes to something like this, they should say you can't do these things. I get it that people need housing and all, but when you give them housing that if anything in their life, they're just barely there, anything in their life changes and it collapses, then they lose their houses and life. It's probably better that they rent for a few more years and feel that pain more than losing their house. So yeah, that's definitely what I would say is we're heading. We didn't learn, and we're heading back there again, and it probably will have to go through another cycle.
Yeah, so I was a financial advisor through those periods. I started in 99 and just kind of watching all this unfold from that side and now seeing again, like you're saying, you're seeing the same stuff starting to happen, maybe even worse
Hmm.
this time
Yeah.
with some of these creative financing options that are ticking time bombs. I don't know where people think this is going to go.
Well, you know what runs it all. There's different sign languages and all over the earth, but there's one sign that all humans on the face of the earth understand. They understand what that means.
Mhm.
and everybody
Hmm.
knows it. And that's what runs everything. So if somebody can make money doing this, they're going to do it.
Right.
It's and I'm no genius in seeing it coming again. But somebody else who's got some power to hit the brakes should be seeing it. But because of that, everybody gets out of the way. You know,
So this next question pretty much feeds into that. If the market experienced another major disruption tomorrow, what advice would you give brokers and investors?
I mean, investors in particular, watch out because
Mm,
you're going to be buying at the top, and it's going to be really tough. The only decent thing about that, however, is that when it goes into a downturn, rent go, renters go up. People can't
hmm
afford to buy the houses anymore. So investors, if they're smart and if they buy smart and if they really do a good analysis on what they're doing, will usually get through okay. I mean, that's the nice thing about real estate investing is, dirt doesn't go away. And the mortar and bricks don't go away, so you'll always have that. So they don't crash to zero like they can in the stock market. But since everybody else is hurt and they're looking to rent, you can be okay.
hmm
For the residential broker, however, be very careful and be honest with people. When
hmm
don't right now, if you go to list a property, if the property's worth 700, they want 725. They
hmm
they list it for 725 to get 750 because people are stupid and crazy. Now the guy who bought it for 750 is going to have to figure out how to pay for that when the house is no longer worth that. It's now worth 600. So
Right.
you need to keep your finger on the market. You need to even if you don't have a client, run CMAs. Get
hmm
and do it for all kinds, for townhouses, for luxury homes, for everything. Run CMAs. Pick areas, pick the different towns. See, that's what I was saying about Jersey being so, I live in a town and I'm about half a mile from the border from the next one. If you picked my house up and put it just across that street, it would go up in value about $50,000 just because of the difference in the two neighborhoods. Of course, your taxes will go up double down there too. But that's what I'm saying. If you run CMAs for different types of properties in different areas, and then now you're figuring out what's going on and what's happening right now. Because what happened last October is okay, but what's happening now? And is it because it's the spring market? Did it go up for spring? Is it going to stay up through August? What's going to happen? So that's what doing the CMAs and keeping your finger on what's going on, and then letting your buyers know what's going on, letting your sellers know what's going on, and you can show them that data.
You wonder how much anticipation of like interest rates or macro international issues affects some of the mindset of people, um,
Oh,
eh,
sure.
buyers and sellers.
Sure, of course. But when you're dropping bombs in one place and having to spend $4.50 a gallon to put in your car, and you
Hmm
decided to buy the SUV last year because you love it, yeah, you're going to feel it. And people don't realize that mortgages are not based on um, the Fed rates and things; they're based on
hmm
inflation. So
hmm
when the market thinks there's going to be a lot of inflation now, the mortgage rates go up.
hmm
And people see a Fed rate come down and think the mortgage rate's going to come down. No, it's not.
Not
It
necessarily.
it comes down when the inflation rate comes down and when the fear of inflation. Because remember, when you're an investor and
Right.
you're investing in somebody's property, you're giving them money for 30 years. You make a mistake on that, you've made a 30-year mistake.
hmm
So that's
hmm
that's why they look an awful lot at the idea of inflation because they're worried that the money they're going to be earning on this is not going to be worth it. We talk about all the
Yeah.
time. This thing happened and now we're talking about 1930 dollars, and we have to now upgrade that. Well, the same thing happens. I mean,
hmm
money today is worth more than money tomorrow. So keeping all of that in mind. So it can be tough.
Yeah. So you've seen technology evolve dramatically over the past 2 decades. What technological changes have had the biggest impact on the industry?
Well, I mean, we can go back to there's probably three biggest ones. I mean, the first one was the MLS. That's what made the business what it is. Before that, you listed the property and you sold it and that's why most of the large real estate companies have giant places at the center of town or with big signs and things because unless you got people in the door you couldn't sell anything. Well, the MLS then evened that out. So now even though I have this boutique shop, I'm just as powerful as any of the big guys
Hmm.
because I have access to everybody's listings and I hire every one of them to sell my property by putting it on the MLS.
Right.
But we were selling information. Information went out the door when the internet came. Now you go to Zillow and it'll tell you how much your property's worth. People can do all of that, and people stopped
Hmm.
walking in the doors of these places. So the internet certainly was, I mean, that turned the whole thing around. A good
Right.
example is how many people are using travel agents anymore. Travel agents and realtors were in the same basic spot when the internet came along, and the
Hmm.
travel agents decided not to make changes, and they went away. Realtors said, "Okay, we're not selling information anymore. We're selling our services, what we do." Came up with Realtor.com and other things that tied
Hmm.
into it, and so that helped us to survive. Number three is in the middle of happening. That's AI.
Hmm.
We don't even know what that's going to do to us. I mean, most realtors are using it to write their descriptions at least, but that
Right.
that is like a little, pin prick compared to what this thing can do and and how it can mess us up too.
Yeah.
So we,
Yeah.
it's something that we need to keep a very close eye on. And I think the real estate commissions are also looking at it too. Are you supervising it or is AI supervising it? You know,
Right. Right. Yep. And I think the thing that a lot of people don't really sit down and think about is how AI still it needs to be observed. It needs to be watched. It needs to be monitored. It needs to be checked because it will do things that it shouldn't
well,
or
I
that
mean,
you wouldn't think it should. And if you're not watching it, and reining it in, it can get you in a lot of trouble. And still, at the end of the day, AI is still garbage in, garbage out, right?
well, and the thing is, when you have a system, that one of the things that describes it is hallucinations. That should tell you right there may be a problem here. If that's because it present, I've found it a lot of times. Like some little program I'm working on has a problem. I'll ask AI, how do I fix this? And it'll tell me, and it's not there. And I find out it's totally guessing. And I'll say, "Are
Mm.
you guessing?" And it says, "Yeah, I was. Yeah, sorry, I was guessing." And I'm going, "Wow, that's really dangerous." It's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay to fix TikTok, but when it comes to selling somebody's the home that they've owned for 25 years and that's their retirement and things, you can't be using something that's got hallucinations.
that would be somebody, if that was an employee, you'd tell them that this isn't their gig. They need to go work someplace else.
Right. Go hallucinate somewhere else.
Yeah, shoot. Um, what parts of the real estate business still feel surprisingly manual today?
Well, and I guess I think that some of it should remain manual.
Mm,
When I told you about, talking to people, I mean, a number of the
yeah.
people I've spoken to recently, um, they don't want the internet stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a tool, but they want to be able to talk to you. They want you to come to their house and sit down with them. The investor wants you to run the numbers for them, and help them to see and make a decision because they're scared to death of putting down this kind of money. And buying a house now is a huge investment, and
Hmm.
and it's likely to be the biggest investment you'll ever make in your life. So being able to talk to the person who's doing it and to feel them out and to say, yeah, I trust this person. So I hope that never goes away, and I don't think it will because
I
humans
don't
can't.
think
Yeah, humans have to have that, and
right.
that's not just a baby boomer thing. That's
Mm-mm.
that's human nature. That you're scared to plop that money down. I need to know what you know.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a reoccurring theme that I've seen in a lot of people and a lot of business owners that I've talked to, whether it be in the marketing space or in the brokerage space. It's still all about relationships and um, wanting and still wanting that human touch on transactions. And um, it seems to me like we've kind of come full circle. That things were getting pretty uh
Impersonal.
there were yeah, very impersonal. And there seems to be a circle back to especially some of the advertising firms I've talked to. It's getting back more towards the personal side of
Yeah,
things
yeah,
versus just the
and I've stayed that course all the way through.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and especially in the real estate world, it's so relationship driven, right?
Right.
That I mean that's good at the end of the day, that's your bread and butter. That's what's making you money.
Yeah, that's saying, they have to know you care before they care what you know.
Yeah, well, true. Right, right. That's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Um, if you could eliminate one operational headache from the real estate industry, what would it be?
Mortgage brokers. Um, I've had
Should
mortgage.
I edit that out of this or should I leave it in here?
No, you can leave it in just because if you've got a good one, and I have several really good ones, they're great guys, and
Hmm.
you can't operate without them. You have to have them.
Hmm.
But there's
Yep.
it's where the slime is,
Yeah.
and so many of them. I just had a deal fall apart that blew three or four deals because the person told us we have a clear to close when we did not have a clear to close. It was verbal. So one of the clients packed their truck up and were heading towards their new buy when we found out we weren't closing. And then it went for 2 more weeks with these people having to pay money from storage. And it just, what a nightmare. And they had their beautiful new home. It was a nightmare for everybody, all because, rather than making sure it was true, he wanted to make everybody feel good. So that kind of, I would much rather you tell me, no, no, hold on, don't do it yet. We don't have the clear to close. So that's just one example of it. But this bait and switch and stuff that goes on often in it, I find that is probably one of the biggest things that I'd love to move out of the way.
Yeah.
That one I might give to AI. Because it's
It's
just it's numbers. It's not, it's no
right,
personality there. So that could
right,
be.
right. They're not personal decisions, they're impersonal decisions when it comes to on the mortgage side of things.
Give me the paycheck. I
Yeah,
feed the paycheck in, and it tells me whether I can do it. That and the
yeah,
other paperwork says yes or no.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's funny you use that example because, my wife is a real estate agent here, and she just about had a transaction blow up for that exact same thing. They had, as far as everybody, they were clear to close. Uh, 5 days before the closing, the mortgage broker comes back and says, we can't do this the way you want or the way that we told you you could. It'll have to be this way. And it's such last, everybody's just up in arms. Well, what do we do now? Yeah, yeah. And it was just foolish. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like this couldn't have been this couldn't have been pointed out right at the start. It
Right.
took this long to figure that out.
or at least say, you know what, this is borderline.
May be
So,
able to
so
do this.
we're going to do the best we can,
Yeah,
but we may get out there and find out we can't do it. Okay.
right,
But oh
right.
yeah, no problem. We can do this. And of course, they always do that when you're calling the different mortgage people. How much can you do this
Right.
for? And that's when the
Yeah,
slime comes
yeah,
out.
yeah, right, right, right. So where do you think technology will have the greatest impact over the next 5 years? I know where you'd like to have it, like it to have the impact, but what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think we're all waiting to see where AI is going to go.
Hmm.
And I think it is going to have a huge impact. I'm working with a couple of people working in different segments who are building systems that are AI driven.
Hmm.
And there's a really good place for it. And I think we all see it when we go to some sort of customer service and Joey, the AI assistant, comes on and answers questions for you until
Hmm.
you finally start typing the word human, 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 until it finally
Yeah,
connects you to somebody. So
right.
it's gonna and it's got a good place there.
Hmm.
And I think that's gonna move things along. But then it gets to the point where how fast is fast, and is there enough supply coming in to match that? And that's when your generations all come in. The boomers moving out and selling everything, and there's the ones in the middle that aren't too big, and then how well that's
Yeah,
working. So we'll see.
yeah.
And I think the young people now too are, as you said before, kind of coming around to they're a little tired of the
Hmm.
technology stuff. So
Hmm.
I think that a mixture that says let's use these things as tools,
Hmm.
not to execute, but to give me what I need in order to do what I do best.
Right. Augment your abilities, um, and maybe help improve some of your shortcomings. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
that's what it is. It's a tool. If people are going to rely on it for as their sole business advisor,
yeah.
they're going to have trouble.
Right, right. You need somebody who's been in the trenches and somebody who's gone
Hmm.
through the ups and downs and knows how to survive them. Yeah.
So you've built a long and successful career, obviously. What habits or disciplines have contributed most to your longevity here?
Well, uh, listening, I think.
Hmm.
I get an awful lot of people who, offer me things and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" and that kind of stuff. And that's led me to these different opportunities that I've had over the years have been for relationship driven. They
Hmm.
come, I hate to keep beating the drum about personal touch, but personal touch is also what's brought me along. It's the connections I've had with people. It's a conversation like this, you and I, and then all of a sudden you think of something later on and go, "Oh, Dave Sweeney, we were talking about that. Let me ask him."
Hmm.
So that's where that personal touch is also really important, is in your relationships with other people. Um,
Hmm.
I'm an instructor too, and I do the ethics class. And one of the things I try to teach people is the realtor code of ethics is more than just fluff. It means that all the transactions you're going to do in your life, most of them, your relationship with those people is one transaction. They're going to either buy their house, or if you're pretty good at it, and they buy a house and later on they sell it, you might get that. But generally speaking,
Hmm.
but almost 100% of them will have a realtor on the other side of it.
Hmm.
So, getting to the point where somebody is looking at a listing and saying, Dave Sweeney, I know him, he'll be fair and okay,
Hmm.
is extremely important.
Right. Right.
So it's the relationships and it's understanding those relationships that have connected me so far. I don't think I'm going to get AI connections. I think it's
Mm.
because I think that's going to come in because a guy who's doing it needs to know this or that and remembers my name.
Yeah. Yeah. What do younger professionals underestimate about building a successful business?
Um, Putting in the time and effort. And almost every and that's not new. I'm not going to put that on the young people. That's always been that way. People come
Hmm.
in, they think, oh, real estate. I mean, what am I going to do? Oh, let me do real estate because there's lots of money in that. And then they go out almost as fast as they come in because they don't understand this is work. You got no salary. um, and the roller coaster. The I got a client, therefore I'm going to spend all my time with the client, therefore I'm going to get it, and then you close, and all of a sudden you realize there's nothing else. You haven't been doing anything to get, and down you go. And it's hard. If you don't have some money to get through about a year, expecting that you're not going to make anything at all for that year, so that's, and I think throughout this we're going to get the personal touch, but the idea that they have to build their reputation, they have to build, and most of your transactions at the beginning are going to come from people you know.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
my
Right.
my my son Bobby is in real estate, and I heard you're selling your house. Why don't you call him?
Hmm.
Those are the kind of things that get us started, and those are the
Yeah.
connections that start to build, but also the connections with all those professionals that you dealt with through all of that. You get an attorney that you become friends with who likes you, stuff will come there. A really good
Hmm.
mortgage guy who really knows what he's doing and isn't like the one we were talking about before. You get in, they may pay for
Hmm.
some of your advertising. They may, and you're sending them business. So it's definitely a lot of interaction. So you don't think you're going to put this on Facebook and TikTok and it's going to explode and you're going to make millions of dollars. It doesn't work like that.
It's building out that network, and and I'm sure I've seen it through the years, and I'm sure you have too. It's one reason somebody might get into real estate is they have a very well-to-do relative that's selling a house, and that that's my start, but like you said, they have nothing to back it up after that one transaction is done.
Well, the large real estate companies rely on that. I mean,
I'm sure.
when you come into the big guys and they're giving you a 50% split because they say you're brand new and you understand why, you're going to bring in your three relatives and get only 50%. Now they'll move you up, but you got nobody coming in the back door. Doesn't matter how much they
Hmm.
move you up to. And the company doesn't care. They made the money off of you, move you out of the way, move the next guy in and get his three relatives. So when you
Yep.
realize that that's the way that works, you need to be smarter than that. And you
Yeah.
need to understand what does it take to build, to have CRMs and everything else to start building these relationships. But don't think that clients are the only relationship. You've got to have the relationship with all these other people. A good handyman, just something as,
Yeah.
a good cleaner, things like that. So that when somebody say, "Hey, do you know a good cleaner?" Yeah, boy, I do. And
Hmm.
they come in and do a
Hmm.
great job. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. If you were starting over today, knowing what you know now, would you do it again? No, but well, what would you do differently?
I'm not, if I was doing it today, I mean, of course, if you're saying, do I go back in time and start again with the tools that were there at the time, or am I starting again today with these new tools? A lot of my business did grow from people walking in the front door of the brokerage firm. That doesn't happen.
Hmm.
People don't walk in the
Yeah.
door anymore. It happens
Yeah.
rarely. Yeah, I would. And one of the things I had back then was because I came from big business. I ran a large data center at Merrill Lynch, so I knew technology back then, and I was coming in and the idea of a website. These people were all 55 years old and wouldn't have known what a website is if they fell over it. So that's what, so it's look for the niche, look for the thing, try to figure out. One thing that I learned in one of the real estate schools I went to was go interview in the place that you're going to work, go interview the top producers and ask them what they did and look for things they didn't do. Look for
Ah,
things that they're not good at and say,
sure.
okay, how can I fit inside this? because they're doing
hmm
that.
hmm
And I'll do some of that,
hmm
but let me see what and one of the things that I had was technology back then. Now the kids coming in have far more than me. But look, everybody starts off with no transactions and have to go sell somebody to believe you could be my first.
hmm
And so that's the key is take the time to build your system and be confident. That's the biggest thing. You've got to
Right.
get people to believe that you believe and that okay, this guy's got it. I mean, a quick little story. My first pitch to my first listing was, "You're going to be my first listing. You could get somebody who got 20 of them, but if you do, that person's going to be working on those 20. I'm going to be living on your doorstep. Everybody who
hmm
walks through this, I'm going to give the feedback down to everything that they say. I'm going to give you reports, and so you ask me to stop giving reports. I'm going to be paying so much attention to this that there's no way it can't sell."
hmm
And that convinced them. So it's that kind of thing. It's the elevator speech, all those little kind of things. Make
Right.
them believe, that you believe what you're doing, and that's going to help you a great deal.
Absolutely. Believe in your product, right?
Right. And in
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. We got five what I would call rapid fire questions. So just the first thing that comes to your mind, just spit it right out. So, best business lesson you've ever learned.
Pay attention to people.
Most expensive mistake you've ever made.
Opening a brokerage just before a crash.
Yeah, that's one of those things in hindsight.
Yep.
Yeah, 2020 on that, but
Yep.
right, right. A book every entrepreneur should read.
My son reads all sorts of books and stuff. I'm not one of those. I don't do it.
hmm
So
hmm
the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all of those things. I've never read them. You know,
Well,
I'm going out on my own on that, which I'm not saying is the way people should do it. So those things certainly have a lot of great information in it. It's just not something I've ever done.
well, if they don't read, then they should watch this episode of this podcast, is what they
That's
should
it.
do. Yeah.
That's right.
A business trend everyone is talking about that you think is overrated.
Well, I'm going to go back to AI again and say
hmm
that I think everybody is expecting something from this that it may not be able to deliver.
hmm
And I know I'm beating this poor horse to death, but the idea of I can't go and talk to somebody and have that personal touch no matter how much AI I have.
Right.
If they put it inside a robot and it's able to move around, it's still not going to get the feeling that you get.
hmm A business trend that deserves more attention.
Business trend. I got nothing for that one.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, every business is different. Uh, Maybe a trend. Well, you could also use AI in this as well. Um, Learning the proper way to use AI.
Well, yeah, it did pop in my mind. It sounds like I'm going in two different directions with the same thing. I mean, it's underrated and overrated at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so this has been probably one of the most informative podcasts that we've done to date, and I want to thank you, David, for coming on. I was excited to unpack this, and for good reason.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I enjoy this business, so I think it comes across.
it does. Absolutely, it does. So tell everybody where they can get a hold of you.
Well, they can get me either by email. It's David at davidmsweeney.com. And don't forget the M, because
Don't forget the M.
I know somebody left it out and didn't get me. So David at David M. Sweeney Realty. Davidmsweeney.com. So it's David at davidmsweeney.com is the email. Davidmsweeney.com is the website. You can get me through either one of those. Our office number, 908-329-2122. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's residential, commercial, investment, we do it all. And we look very closely at the individual. So we care about people more than we care about sales.
Amen to that. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks everyone for joining us again in another episode of Industry Insiders. And David, thank you again.
My pleasure.